Hi, this is Lori from Time to Create. Today we're going to walk you through the Scrapbooking 101 Super Mini album tutorial. This is a one-page project made from an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock and then some additional scraps of paper. This is what the book will look like. It measures 3 by 3. I'll show you how to make this flower in another tutorial, but for today we're just going to make the book. And it opens, of course, to an 8.5 by 11 in measurement. And you have 3 little pockets in the project, and then places to put small photographs. And in the pockets you can put little tags for journaling or additional photos. You can put a picture here and here. Here. Folds up, you could actually put a photo there. This is your front. And on this one I put a pocket on the back where you can slip in another journaling card or another photograph. I have one here to show you that I'm going to give as a gift to our aunt and uncle as a reminder of our daughter's wedding. Her colors were this mint green with a peach accent, so that's why I chose that paper. And I just put their names on the inside flap. And then you can see I added some photographs from the wedding. This was their engagement photo. You can add little embellishments like some stickers. You don't want to go too crazy with your embellishments because you only have 1/4 of an inch to work with. So if you put something in too thick, your little book won't close. But you can add tags and write names with dates to remember. Just a cute little easy project. And then again I put a pocket on the back so you can slip in an additional, in this case, photograph. So we're going to get started. What you'll need for the project is a pair of scissors, some glue. You can use either a glue stick or some liquid glue if you have some liquid glue, bone folder, a ruler. I like to use a paper trimmer. It makes it easier to cut your squares of paper, but you certainly can measure them out and cut them by hand. So if you don't have a paper trimmer, you can still do this project. I'm also going to be using my scoreboard, which will score our 8.5 by 11 so we can make our folds in order to make the book. This is Martha Stewart's scoreboard. And then you'll need a variety of scraps of paper cut to specific measurements. Like I said, the book measures 3 by 3. I like to have some border around those photos and your paper, so you can see here where I left some of the cardstock show. But you could do your own measurements and certainly take the paper all the way out to the edge or make it smaller, whatever you'd like. But I'm going to give you the measurements of what I used. Alright, so we're going to get started. The first thing you want to do is get your 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and we're going to score the paper from the 8.5 by 11 edge at 2 3/4 and 5 5/8. Then we'll turn our paper to the 11th inch side and we'll score at 1 3/4 and 2 inches, 4 7/8, and then again at 5 1/8, at 8 inches, and 8¼ inches. Once we have those score lines made, we will then cut these sections away. This top section both on your left and right hand side, and both of these narrow sections as we follow down the page. So once you do that, you're going to have a piece of paper that looks very similar to this. Of course, these will be longer. I cut these off to show you where we cut. But this will be your top flap. That's where we remove those two sections at the top. And then we're going to cut this in half, this flap in half, and this flap in half, because they will make the pockets for our book. So I'm going to go ahead and score this for you. I've pre-scored this one, but I'm going to go ahead and score again. So you're going to line up your 8½ by 11 side, and you're going to score at 1 3/4 inches and 2 inches. Now you're just going to use moderate pressure. If you press too heavily, you'll rip your paper. Then we're going to score again at 4 7/8, and then again at 5 1/8, at 8 inches, and then 8 1/4 inches. Then you'll turn your paper with your 11-inch side along the left-hand side of your scoreboard, and you'll score at 2 7/8 and 5 7/8. And your paper, this is how it will look. Again, this is going to be our top flap here. We're going to remove these two sections and then these narrow sections. So I've gone ahead and done that to save some time on the video. But let me just show you what I mean. You're just going to take your scissors and come in here and remove these sections. You can save these little scraps of paper for journaling cards. Again, if you have a paper trimmer, you can use a paper trimmer. You can use an X-Acto knife and a ruler. That's generally what I do. I seem to get a better cut and a straighter cut if I use the X-Acto knife. But today I'm just going to go ahead and use the scissors. So just continue to cut out these small sections. This is going to allow us to fold our book, make our pockets, and our pages in the book. Just follow along those lines. So this is what it'll look like when you get those sections cut. This is our top flap. These will be our pages and our pockets. So what you're going to next do is remove half of these pages. I'm just going to line up with my ruler along my fold line with the line of my ruler. That's very convenient. I'm going to take maybe about half of that page away. I'm going to use my X-Acto knife on this. And you're going to do every other. So I'm going to do the bottom flap here, and my ruler slid. So I'm going to want to straighten that up. And then this top flap. I'm going to save those. And then turn your work Again, line up or draw a line. You can measure and make a line, cut with your scissors. And come in there and trim that off. And that allows us to have a pocket here, and then a page. You fold up from the bottom. This is where your bone folder comes in handy. I'm going to fold along these crease lines that we made, fold lines. This is going to come in, make another pocket, and again another page. We're going to follow that next score line. And again, you want to get a nice crease. Come in with our last pocket, our last page, and then this is our top flap. So you want to give that a good crease as well. Now I like to round my corners, but you don't have to do that. That's certainly optional. So this is how our book will look. And then we're going to go ahead and decorate this with our scraps of paper. So for the project, as far as scraps of paper, what you're going to need is 6 2 5/8 by 2 5/8 pieces of patterned paper. You will need 6 2.5 by 2.5 pieces of patterned paper. I only have 3 here because I have them, some of them already in my book. Then you're going to need 2 pieces that measure 2 5/8 by 1 5/8, and that is going to be for our inside and outside flap of the book. And then I'm going to put a pocket again on the back, and that is going to measure 2 5/8 by 1 3/8. You can certainly judge some of these measurements to your liking. But I have a book started. I've laid out some of my paper. That's my back flap. Now you want to determine what you're going to use for your top flap, and you want to certainly mark your front of the book. So I just put an F there for front, and I want to make sure I understand that if I use a patterned paper that the design needs to be facing up, because once you open this up and start working on it, it can become confusing. Now, like I said, I like to ink my edges of my papers, which I have done. It's a very easy process. I went ahead and laid out some of these pages and glued them. I like to use an ink pad that is not as expensive as maybe some of the others. It's kind of a sponge ink pad, because I like to ink right from the ink pad instead of using, say, an ink stamper like this, which is fine if you like to use these, but to me it's an extra step. So I just ink from my ink pad, and once I wear this down, it really gives me a nice finish and a nice smudge on the edge of my paper. The only problem is sometimes the ink pad starts to crumble a little bit, but there's still plenty of ink in there. And so I just rub the ink pad across the edges of the paper, and that gives me a nice little smudged edge. And I just do that over top of a scrap piece of paper so it keeps my work surface clear. So that piece there is one of the 2 5/8 by 2 5/8, and that will fit there. Turn this for you. I did round my edges, as you'll notice, but I didn't round the edges of my inside pieces, which you can do, but I didn't take the time to do that today. So then all you're going to do is come in here, once you've laid out where you want your paper to go, take a glue stick, or you can use liquid glue, and we're just going to apply the glue to our paper. And then you're just going to place that in that section. And then you want to make sure you just rub it down real well so you have a good stick with your glue. I guess you could use glue dots or anything like that. You want to use an acid-free, certainly if you're going to be working with photographs. Now this piece here has writing on it, so I want to make sure that it's facing the correct way. So if you have any patterned paper that has numbers on it or any kind of lettering, you just want to double check yourself and make sure you have that facing the right way. Then what we want to do is come in with our little flap and glue that down. Now for that I like to use the liquid glue, and just run a little bead of glue on the edges of that flap. I did take my 1-inch punch and made a little half moon opening there to give it a little more character. Now this glue takes just a little bit sometimes, so I'll just put a little paper clip to hold that down for me while I'm waiting for that glue to dry. Okay, then when we flip that over, flip it over, you have these other spaces on the back of your project where we still need pieces of paper. And so I'm going to go ahead and line that up. These are my 2.5 by 2.5 sheets of paper. And then well, this is my front flap. I'm going to want this to go here. And I'm going to turn it that way because I want that lacy pattern to face that way. And I'm going to put this one here and this one here. And as I said, you just lay these out to whatever your liking is, however your paper works. And then you're just going to come back in with your glue and adhere those down. When I went over the supply list, I think I forgot to mention a magnet. I like to put a magnet closure on the book because the paper doesn't really stay down. I use a magnet because it's easier, but I'm sure you could come up with additional ways to keep it closed. The magnet seems to be easiest. Now today I'm going to try to use this type of a magnet, the little black ones with the paper adhesive. Sometimes they're not quite strong enough to hold, but we'll see how we make out. There's some really great magnets online. I thought I had some. They have a real strong connection to each other, but I have two. I need a plus and a minus, and I've got two pluses, so I'd have to do a little bit of finagling to get those to work. I'm going to go ahead and glue this. I'm going to wait for my front flap to glue that down because I want to hide that magnet under there. Now this has some lettering, so I want to make sure I'm going the right way, so I'm going to flip that. It's upside down for you, but it should be right side up when I finish the book. Now when you use a liquid glue or the glue stick, you have a little bit of wiggle room as far as readjusting or realigning your paper. If you use the glue tape, not so much. This one I kind of got on there a little crooked. I'm going to put a little more glue down. realign that. So give that another good rub. All right, 2 more sheets left. You could make a book like this for those photos you get at a carnival from a photo booth, or if you're at the boardwalk, or those small photos that they take at the hospital when someone's having a baby. Any of those small pictures that you don't want to throw away, you want to keep, but you don't have a place to put them when they end up in the junk drawer. This is a great little place to put them. Or if you wanted to make a little memory for your child's teacher, you put a few pictures of your child in there and maybe a little thank you on the journaling cards. That would be nice. They're very easy to make, and they really turn out really well. Okay, so that's the last of those. I'm going to flip this back around and see if my pocket is, yeah, it seems like it's sticking pretty well now. My pocket is down. So now I have the top flap. You see this is coming together very nicely. That's all covered. So now I have my front flap, my front cover, my front flap, and I'm going to put a back pocket on there. So this is what I'm going to use for my top flap, and then this is what I'm going to use for my front cover. But I'm nervous about this magnet because I'm not sure it's gonna hold. So what you do is you take your little magnet, if you can find smaller ones, thinner ones, stronger. They're hard to come by, but we're going to try this. So you just stick that on there, and then of course we need the other half. Peel off the backing. I just let it stick to itself there, and then I'm just going to fold this over, press it down, and hope it sticks to where it's supposed to. Ah, it did. That looks like it's going to close and hold okay for me. But the problem is now I need to get another sheet of paper on here, and I would like to cover that. I may not cover this depending on if the magnet is strong enough to work through the cardstock, the pattern paper. This pattern paper I'm using is a little weightier than some of your scrapbooking paper. So I'm going to go ahead and apply my glue to my front flap. Again, I'm going to give that a good press down. Now you've got that magnet there, so it's a little tricky. And then I'm going to put that on that way. And I'm not sure. Oh, it looks like it's going to hold for me. So that's great. So I'm going to go and glue the back of this. And we're going to put that right over top of that magnet. Just center that as best we can. Press that down as well as you can. You've got your magnet hidden under there. So you want to make sure you get a good stick. Let's see if it's going to be agreeable. Okay, so far so good. Now normally I would, I think I just dropped my, yeah, I did. I would put another piece of paper in here to cover that up, but I'm not sure that that magnet is going to work, so I might work on that off camera. But I think that's fine the way that is. Now this is the piece of paper that I'm going to use for my back flap. I'm just going to put that there. And I'm going to come in with my 1-inch punch and make a little half circle. Give that a little character. And then I'm going to grab my ink pad because I didn't ink this. I'm going to ink all my edges. Make sure you ink that little spot we just cut. Okay. And then I'm going to use again for the flap, the back pocket, liquid glue. It dries really well. I'm going to do 3 sides because we don't want anything to slip out the bottom. And so you just attach that to the back of your book. Now certainly for your inside flaps, you could cover these with patterned paper, but I like to leave them the color of the original cardstock, and then I like to stamp. And so today I'm going to use Tim Holtz Black Soot ink pad. And you can see the difference in these ink pads maybe. This is softer and more like a sponge, and this one is a more dense kind of an ink pad. So if you edge your papers with this ink pad, you get a dark line. You don't get that smudge soft look like you do with this type of ink pad. But I have a little block of gosh, I don't know what you call that. It's like plexiglass kind of a block. And I'm going to just take a little stamp that has no backing on it. It just adheres to your block. Now it's recommended that you not go right from your ink pad to your work, that you do a test. Make sure that it stamps the way that you like. So I'm going to re-ink my stamp. Now I'm working upside down, so I'm going to see, guess I'm going to put that right there. Memories, great. And then I'm going to do a little flower. Again, I'm going to test it on a, okay. And I think I'm going to put that one right here. And you can leave it plain, you don't really have to put anything on there, but I like the stamping. So I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to put this type of little flower down on the bottom flap. That works. Well, how cute is that? Isn't that cute? And then you'll remember we had scraps of paper left that we cut away when we made our pockets. And so I like to trim those up. I'm not really the best straight cutter, but you can use these little bits of paper. You can round your edges, you can leave them square, you could punch a hole in the top. You can also ink. This one says, take note. So it just gives you a little spot to do some journaling. And just slip that in one of your pockets. Of course, mine says ache note because I didn't press down properly. And you can also ink your edges on these and make these how you want them. And you can also just slip an additional photograph in there. You might have several photographs that you're trying to get into one little book. For a little one-page project, it holds quite a few photographs. I like the journaling tags. You can just slip that in there. And that's basically it. I hope you have fun with this project. I hope you'll make many. I know whoever would receive one surely would love it. And then I like to just embellish the front. So I'd appreciate it if you left a comment. Let me know how you like this project, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you.